My neighbor has been watering my lawn for 3 years, and I just found out why. And let me tell you, this is not the story you think it is. So, picture this. It is 2021. The world is still weird from the whole pandemic thing. And I just moved into this little house in a quiet neighborhood in Portland, Oregon. I am talking quiet, like you can hear the wind chimes from 3 houses down, kind of quiet. The kind of quiet where you start noticing things you never noticed before. Like how the mailman always wears the same blue cap. Like how Mrs. Chen across the street waters her orchids at exactly 4 in the afternoon every single day. Like how the guy 3 houses down walks his golden retriever at 6 in the morning. Rain or shine. And that dog is always carrying a tennis ball. My name is Jake. Well, not really. But let us just go with Jake for this story. I am in my early 30s. I work from home as a software developer. And honestly, I picked this neighborhood because it seemed boring. And I wanted boring. After a messy divorce and a job that was eating me alive in San Francisco, boring sounded like paradise. I am talking about the kind of boring where the most exciting thing that happens all week is the trash truck coming on Tuesday mornings. The kind of boring where you can hear yourself think. The kind of boring where you start to remember what it feels like to just exist without constantly running on a hamster wheel of deadlines and expectations and the crushing weight of a marriage that died slowly over 4 years. The house was perfect. Small, cozy, with a front porch that needed some love and a backyard that was basically just grass and one sad-looking tree. The kind of tree that looks like it is trying its best, but life has been rough. Like, you know those trees? The ones that grow sideways because the wind always blows from the same direction? That was my tree, leaning toward the sun like it was begging for warmth. And I related to that tree more than I care to admit. And then, there is my neighbor, Mr. Harold Whitmore. Now, when I say Mr. Whitmore, I am not talking about some creepy old guy from a horror movie. He is not peering through windows or leaving weird notes on your door. He is not the kind of neighbor who complains about your music or calls the cops because your grass is half an inch too long. He is normal, like aggressively normal. He is in his late 60s, maybe early 70s. Tall, thin, with silver hair that he keeps perfectly combed. Not styled, combed. There is a difference. Styled means you are trying to look young. Combed means you have accepted your age and you are just keeping things tidy. He wears cardigans. Actual cardigans. The kind your grandpa wore, not ironically, not as a fashion statement, just cardigans, khaki pants. Those brown leather shoes that make that satisfying click when you walk on pavement. The kind of shoes that have been resoled 3 times because why buy new shoes when the old ones still work? And he is nice. Like, genuinely nice. The day I moved in, he came over with a casserole. A casserole. In 2021. Who does that anymore? I am standing there in my sweaty moving clothes, boxes everywhere. And this guy shows up with a glass dish covered in aluminum foil. And he says, "Welcome to the neighborhood, young man. I made you my wife's famous chicken and rice casserole. She used to make it for every new neighbor." I am like, "Oh, wow, thank you so much. That is really kind of you." And he smiles, this warm, genuine smile. And he says, "My wife passed away 5 years ago, but I still make her recipes. Keeps her memory alive, you know." And I am standing there, holding this casserole. And I feel like the biggest jerk on the planet because I was about to make some joke about casseroles being a thing from the 50s. Like, I was literally about to say something like, "What is this? 1955. And then he hits me with the dead wife thing, and I am just standing there like an idiot, holding a glass dish, feeling the heat through the aluminum foil, and wondering if it is possible to die from secondhand embarrassment. So I just say, "I am really sorry for your loss, Mr. Whitmore, and thank you for this. It means a lot." He nods, pats my shoulder, and says, "Call me Harold, and if you ever need anything, I am right next door." And then he walks back to his house. That was day one. Now, here is where things get weird. About 2 weeks after I moved in, I noticed something. My lawn was green, like really green. Now, I am not a lawn guy. I am the kind of person who thinks grass is just grass. You mow it when it gets too long. You ignore it the rest of the time. I had not watered it once since I moved in. It was August. It was hot. The grass should have been turning brown. In Portland, August is when lawns go from green to that sad beige color that makes the whole neighborhood look like it is giving up. But it was not. It was lush and green, and honestly, it looked better than when I bought the place. I figured, maybe it rained while I was at the grocery store or something. Portland gets random rain. No big deal. Like, you will be sitting in your living room, sun shining through the window, and suddenly, whoosh, rain out of nowhere. It is one of the weirdest things about this city. You learn to always carry an umbrella even when the forecast says clear skies. But then it kept happening. Week after week, month after month, my lawn stayed green, through the dry spells, through the heat waves, through everything. And I started noticing something else. Every morning, around 6:30, I would hear it. The sound of a sprinkler, not my sprinkler. I do not even have a sprinkler system. I am talking about the kind of sprinkler you attach to a hose. The old-fashioned kind that goes, chick, 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 and spins around. The kind that kids run through in the summer, screaming and laughing, getting soaked before their parents even realize they are outside. And every morning, I would peek through my blinds, and there was Harold, watering my lawn, every single day. At first, I thought it was a mistake, like maybe his hose was not long enough to reach his own lawn, and he was just using mine as a, I do not know, practice field or something. Maybe he was testing his sprinkler before using it on his own yard. That makes sense, right? Like, you test it on the neighbor's lawn first, make sure it works, then move it to your own. But no, he was specifically watering my grass. He would start at the edge near his property, work his way across my entire front yard, and then move to the backyard, methodical, precise, like he was painting a masterpiece, but with water. Every morning, rain or shine. For 3 years now, I tried to talk to him about it. The first time, I caught him in the act. I walked outside in my pajamas, coffee in hand, and I said, "Hey, Harold, what are you doing?" And he looks at me, completely calm, like he is not doing anything weird at all, and says, "Just helping out, Jake. Your sprinkler system is broken, and I did not want your grass to die." I am like, "Harold, I do not have a sprinkler system." And he just smiles, that same warm smile, and says, "Exactly, that is why I am helping." And then he goes back to watering. I stood there for a minute, confused, and then I just went back inside. I mean, the guy is in his 70s. He is being nice. My lawn looks amazing. What am I going to do? Yell at him for being too helpful? Am I going to be that guy? The guy who yells at the sweet old man for watering his lawn? No, I am not that guy. I refuse to be that guy. So I let it go. But it kept happening. And it was not just the watering. It was the mowing too, every Saturday morning. Like clockwork, I would wake up to the sound of a lawnmower, and I would look outside, and there was Harold, pushing his old gas-powered mower across my yard. The kind of mower that sounds like a chainsaw having a bad day. The kind that requires you to pull the cord 17 times before it starts. The kind that makes your whole body vibrate for an hour after you finish. Now, I tried to pay him. I left cash in his mailbox. $40. $50. One time I left $100. He returned it every single time. with a little note that said, "Your money is no good here, Jake." I tried to mow my own lawn before he could get to it. I would wake up at 5 in the morning, mow in the dark with a flashlight, and by 8, Harold would be out there mowing it again. Like, he was not satisfied with my mowing. Like my mowing was not up to his standards. I tried talking to him, explaining that I appreciated it, but he did not have to do this. He would just smile and say, "It is no trouble at all, Jake. I enjoy it. Gives me something to do." And that was that for 3 years. 3 years. Now, here is the thing about Reddit stories, and I have read thousands of them, probably more than is healthy for any human being. You know the ones I am talking about. The AITA posts where someone asks if they are the jerk for something completely obvious. The relationship advice where you read the first paragraph and you are already screaming at your screen. The creepy encounters where you are checking your locks by paragraph 3. The "I found something weird in my basement" stories that keep you up until 3 in the morning. And there is this pattern, right? There is always this buildup, this mystery, this thing that does not quite make sense. And you keep reading because you need to know what happens next. You need to know if the person is crazy, or if there is something deeper going on. You need to know if the twist is going to make you cry, or make you throw your phone across the room. That is exactly how I felt about Harold. Every morning, 6:30, there he was, every Saturday, mowing every season, raking leaves, trimming bushes, planting flowers along my fence line. He even put in a little garden bed along the side of my house. Tomatoes, peppers, herbs, basil that smelled so good you could smell it from the street, mint that grew so fast it was basically a weed, rosemary that was taller than my knee. I tried to stop him. I really did. I put up a fence. He watered through the fence. Like, literally stuck the hose through the gaps in the wood. I told him I was hiring a landscaping company. He said, "That is wonderful, Jake. They can focus on the back while I handle the front." And I am not proud of this, I even tried pretending I was not home when he came over. He just did the work anyway. I would peek through the blinds and watch him, mowing, watering, pruning, and I would feel guilty for hiding. And here is the weirdest part. He never asked for anything, not once. No favors, no money, no "can you help me move this heavy thing?" No "can you pick up my prescription?" Nothing. He would just do the work, smile, wave, and go back inside. My friends thought it was hilarious. My buddy Marcus came over one weekend, saw Harold mowing my lawn, and he was like, "Bro, your neighbor is obsessed with you." I am like, "Shut up, man. He is just being nice." Marcus is like, "Nice? He is literally landscaping your entire property for free. For 3 years, that is not nice. That is, I do not even know what that is. But it is not normal. You need to be careful, dude." This is how horror movies start. And I would be lying if I said I did not start to wonder. Because 3 years is a long time. That is 1,095 days of watering, 156 Saturdays of mowing, and not once, not a single time, did Harold ask me for anything. So, I started watching him more carefully. Not in a creepy way, just observing, and I noticed things. He never watered his own lawn. Never. His grass was fine, but it was not like mine. Mine was perfect, like golf course perfect. The kind of green that makes you want to take your shoes off and walk barefoot. His was just normal. Green in some spots, brown in others, with a patch near the driveway that was basically just dirt. He never planted anything in his own yard, never trimmed his own bushes, never raked his own leaves. It was like my yard was his yard, and his yard was just there. I started asking around the neighborhood, Mrs. Chen across the street. She has lived here for 20 years. I am like, "Hey, Mrs. Chen, do you know anything about Harold Whitmore?" And she gets this look on her face. This, I do not know, sad look. Like she knows something, but she is not sure if she should tell me. She says, Harold is a good man, Jake. A very good man. I am like, yeah, I know, but has he always been like this? With the lawn stuff? She pauses, looks at her own yard, and says, he used to do the same thing for the people who lived in your house before you. I am like, really? She nods. The Hendersons, they lived there for about 8 years. Harold took care of their lawn the whole time, and before them, the Millers, he did it for them too. I am standing there, processing this, and I ask, did he ever? I do not know, ask them for anything. Mrs. Chen shakes her head. Not that I ever heard, he just likes taking care of that yard. And then she says something that stuck with me. She says, some people find peace in taking care of things, Jake. Harold, he has had a hard life. Lost his wife, lost his daughter. That yard, it gives him purpose. Lost his daughter? I did not even know Harold had a daughter. I went home that night, and I Googled Harold Whitmore, Portland, Oregon, and I found an obituary from 2015 for a woman named Eleanor Whitmore, Harold's wife. And then I found another one from 2018 for a young woman named Sarah Whitmore, age 29, Harold's daughter, car accident. And then I found something else, a news article from 2016 about a house fire on my street. My address, the article said, local man Harold Whitmore saves family from house fire. Heroic neighbor rushes into burning home to rescue mother and 2 children. I read that article 3 times. Harold, my Harold, ran into a burning building. He saved 3 lives, and the house was mine. Well, it was the Hendersons' house at the time, but it was the same house. I sat there at my computer at 2 in the morning, and I felt like the world had shifted. All this time, I thought Harold was just a nice old guy with too much time on his hands. But there was more to it, way more, and I needed to know the whole story. So the next morning, I set my alarm for 6, and I waited. At 6:30, right on schedule, I heard the sprinkler. I walked outside, in my robe and slippers, and I did not say anything. I just sat on my porch steps, and I watched him. Harold noticed me, gave me a little wave, and kept watering. After about 10 minutes, he turned off the sprinkler, coiled the hose, and started walking toward his house. And I said, Harold, can we talk? He stopped, turned around. And that smile, that warm, genuine smile, it faltered for just a second, just a fraction of a second. And then it was back. Of course, Jake, what is on your mind? I took a deep breath, and I said, I know about the fire. The smile did not falter this time. It disappeared completely. Harold stood there, hose in hand, and he looked, I do not know, tired, really tired. Like someone had let all the air out of him, and he said, You did your research. I nodded. I found the article about you running into the Hendersons' house, saving them. Harold walked over to my porch steps, set the hose down, and sat next to me. He did not say anything for a long time, just sat there, looking at the lawn. The lawn he had watered every day for 3 years, for 8 years before that, for who knows how long before that. Finally, he said, Did you know? Grass has memory. I am like, What? He says. Grass, it remembers. If you take care of it, really take care of it. It grows stronger. It grows deeper roots. It becomes resilient. You can have a drought, a heat wave, a freeze. And the grass will come back because the roots are deep, because someone cared for it. I did not know what to say to that. He continued. When Sarah died, I stopped taking care of things. My lawn died. My house fell apart. I stopped eating properly. I stopped showering every day. I stopped everything. I would sit in that chair, the one by the window, and I would just stare for hours, days. I did not sleep. I did not eat. I just existed. He paused, and I could see his hands shaking. And then The Hendersons moved in next door, and one day, I noticed their grass was turning brown. It was August, hot, dry, and I thought, someone should water that. Someone should take care of it. Because if no one takes care of it, it will die, and I could not. I could not let another thing die. He wiped his eyes with his sleeve. So I did, and the next day, I did it again, and the day after that, and slowly. The grass came back, green, strong, alive, and I would stand there, in the morning, with the hose in my hand. And I would talk to it. I know that sounds crazy, but I would talk to the grass. I would tell it to keep growing, to keep fighting, to not give up. He looked at me, and his eyes were wet. And I realized, taking care of that lawn, it was keeping me alive too. It gave me a reason to get up in the morning, a reason to leave the house, a reason to put on pants, a reason to keep going, because if the grass could keep growing, maybe I could too. I sat there, listening to this man, this hero, and I felt tears in my own eyes. Harold said, "When the Hendersons moved away, I was scared. I thought, what am I going to do now? What is my reason? What is going to keep me alive when there is no grass to water?" He looked at me and smiled, but it was a sad smile. "And then you moved in, Jake, and I saw you, young, tired, carrying boxes by yourself, and you looked lost. You looked like someone who needed taking care of, even if you did not know it, even if you would never admit it." I swallowed hard. "Harold, I do not know what to say." He patted my knee, stood up, and picked up his hose. "You do not have to say anything, Jake, just let me water the grass, please." And he walked back to his house. I sat on those porch steps for another hour, just thinking. And that is when I realized something. Harold was not just watering my lawn, he was watering himself. Every drop that hit that grass was healing something inside him. Every blade that grew green was proof that he was still here, still capable of nurturing something, still capable of love. And I had been so focused on the weirdness of it, on the why is this old man obsessed with my yard angle, that I completely missed the beauty of it. So I made a decision. The next morning, I set my alarm for 6:15, and when Harold came out with his hose, I was already there with my own hose. He looked at me, confused, and I said, "I figured if this lawn needs 2 people to water it, I should probably help." Harold stared at me for a long moment, and then he laughed, a real laugh, not the polite chuckle he usually gave, a deep, from the belly laugh, and he said, "You do not know the first thing about watering a lawn, do you?" I grinned. "Nope, but I am a fast learner." So he taught me, showed me how to set the sprinkler so it covered the whole yard evenly, taught me about morning watering versus evening watering, explained why you do not water when it is too hot, because the water evaporates before it reaches the roots, told me about the importance of aerating, of fertilizing, of overseeding in the fall. And as we worked side by side, he told me stories about his wife Eleanor, how they met at a dance in 1975, how she made the world's worst coffee but the world's best pie, how she used to sing while she gardened, old show tunes, and how the neighbors would open their windows just to hear her, how she died of cancer, slowly, over 2 years, and how Harold sat by her bed every single day, holding her hand, reading to her, telling her stories, until she was gone. He told me about Sarah, how she was a teacher, how she loved kids, how she would come home from school every day with stories about her students, the funny things they said, the drawings they made her, the way their faces lit up when they finally understood something, how she was going to adopt a child with her partner, a little girl from foster care, and how the paperwork was almost done when the accident happened. He told me about the fire, how he heard the smoke alarm from his bedroom, how he did not even think, just ran, how he kicked down the door, how the smoke was so thick he could not see, how he found the kids huddled in a closet, How he carried them out one by one, went back for the mother. He got quiet then. Said the burns on his hands took months to heal. Showed me the scars, thin white lines across his palms, and he said, I would do it again in a heartbeat every single time. We watered the lawn together every morning after that, and on Saturdays, we mowed together. He would do the front, I would do the back, and we would talk about everything, work, life, my divorce, his grief. He became, I do not know, my person. The person I could tell anything to, and slowly. My lawn was not the only thing growing. I was growing too. I started eating better, started going to the gym, started dating again, cautiously, but dating. I even started a little garden of my own in the back, vegetables, because Harold said everyone should grow their own tomatoes at least once in their life. And he was right. Homegrown tomatoes taste like actual magic. But here is where the story takes another turn. Because, remember when I said this was not the story you think it is? Well, I was right, but not in the way I expected. About 6 months after I started watering with Harold, something happened. I came home from work one day, and there was a woman sitting on my porch, young, maybe late 20s, dark hair, wearing a coat that was too big for her. She looked up when I pulled in, and her eyes, they were Harold's eyes, same color, same shape, same sadness behind them. I got out of my car, and I said, "Can I help you?" She stood up, and her hands were shaking. She said, "I am sorry to just show up like this. My name is Emily, Emily Whitmore, Whitmore. Harold's last name, I am like. Are you related to Harold?" She nodded, and tears started falling down her face. "He is my grandfather." I am standing there, confused, because Harold never mentioned a granddaughter. He told me about Sarah, his daughter, but never about any grandchildren, I said. Harold never told me he had a granddaughter. And Emily, she looked at me, and the pain in her eyes. It was like looking at a wound that had never healed. She said, "He does not know about me." I am like, "What?" She took a deep breath, and she said, "My mother was Sarah Whitmore, Harold's daughter. She had me when she was 19. Before she came out, before she met her partner, before everything." She wiped her eyes. "She gave me up for adoption, closed adoption. She never told her parents. She was scared, ashamed, I do not know. But she never told them." I sat down on the porch steps because my legs suddenly felt weak. Emily sat next to me. I found out about her, about Sarah, when I was 18. The adoption agency gave me non-identifying information, and I have been looking for my biological family ever since. She pulled out her phone, showed me a picture. Sarah Whitmore, younger than in the obituary photo. Smiling, holding a baby, Emily said, "This is the only picture I have of her. Someone posted it on social media. I have been trying to find Harold for 2 years." I looked at the photo, then at Emily, and I felt this. I do not know. This weight, this responsibility. Harold had lost everything, his wife, his daughter. He thought he had no one left, and here was his granddaughter, his flesh and blood, sitting on my porch, crying. I said, "Emily, Harold is a good man. The best man I know, but he is fragile. He has been through so much." She nodded. "I know, that is why I have not just knocked on his door. I have been watching him for weeks. I have seen you two, watering the lawn together. I have seen how happy he looks." She looked at me, and her eyes were begging. "I do not want to hurt him. I just want to know him, even a little, even just once." And I sat there on those porch steps, and I thought about bedtime stories. You know the ones your parents read to you when you were little. The ones where everything works out in the end. The prince finds the princess. The lost puppy finds its way home. The lonely old man discovers he has family after all. And I thought, life is not a bedtime story. Life is messy and complicated, and sometimes the happy ending comes with a price, but sometimes Sometimes it is worth the risk. So I made a decision. I said, Emily, I am going to help you, but we are going to do this slowly. Carefully. Harold has been hurt enough. She nodded, tears streaming down her face, and she hugged me, a stranger. She hugged me like I was saving her life. And maybe, in a way, I was. The next morning, I did not go out to water the lawn at 6:30. I waited until 7. And when I went out, Harold was already there. But he was not watering. He was standing in the middle of the yard, looking at the grass, and he looked lost. I walked over to him, and I said, Harold, we need to talk. He looked at me, and I saw fear in his eyes, real fear. He said, You are leaving, are not you? Moving away like the Hendersons, like the Millers. I am like, What? No, Harold, I am not going anywhere. He relaxed, just a little, but the fear did not completely leave. I took a deep breath. Harold, there is someone I want you to meet, someone who has been looking for you. He looked confused. Looking for me? Who would be looking for me? And that is when Emily stepped out from behind my house. She had been waiting there, waiting for my signal. Harold turned, and he saw her, and I will never forget the look on his face. It was like seeing a ghost and an angel at the same time. He stumbled back a step, put his hand on his chest, and he whispered, Sarah. Emily walked toward him. Slowly, tears on her face, she said, No, sir, I am not Sarah, I am Emily. Sarah was my mother. Harold's knees buckled. I caught him, lowered him to the grass he had watered for 3 years, for 8 years before that, for who knows how long before that. And Emily knelt in front of him, took his hand, and she said, I am your granddaughter, Harold, and I have been looking for you my whole life. Harold looked at her face, her eyes, her hair, and he started to cry, not the quiet tears of an old man, deep, gut-wrenching sobs, the kind of crying that comes from a place so deep, so buried, that once it starts, it cannot stop. He pulled Emily into his arms, held her like she was the most precious thing in the world, and he said, over and over, I thought I was alone, I thought I was alone, I thought I was alone. And Emily, she held him back just as tight, and she said, You are not alone, Grandpa, you are not alone anymore. I stood there, watching this moment, this beautiful, impossible moment, and I thought about all the Reddit stories I had ever read. The ones about strangers becoming family, the ones about lost connections found, the ones about kindness coming back around. And I thought, this is better than any of them, this is real. Harold and Emily sat on that grass for an hour, talking, crying, laughing. She showed him pictures of her childhood, her adoptive parents, her college graduation, her dog. Harold showed her pictures of Alina, of Sarah, of the life he thought had ended, and I just sat there with them, a witness. I do not know, a bridge between two people who needed each other, but had no idea how to find each other, until a lawn brought them together. A stupid, beautiful, green lawn. Now, here is the thing, I could end the story there. Happy ending. Grandfather meets granddaughter. Tears are shed. Life goes on. But that is not how real stories work. Real stories have complications, and ours did too, because about a month after Emily and Harold met, something else happened. Something I never saw coming. Emily came over one evening. She had been spending almost every day with Harold, cooking for him, cleaning his house, just being there, and she sat on my porch and she said, Jake, there is something I need to tell you, something about Harold. I am like, okay. What is it? She looked at her hands. I have been going through his things, his photo albums, his papers, his everything. I am like, Emily, you should probably respect his privacy. She shook her head. I know, but I found something. Something I do not understand. She pulled out an envelope, old, yellowed, sealed, and she handed it to me. I looked at it. No address, no stamp, just a name written on the front in Harold's handwriting. For Sarah, his daughter. The daughter who died in 2018. I looked at Emily. When did he write this? She shook her head. I do not know, but Jake, look at the date. I turned the envelope over, and there, in small letters, October 15th, 2019. 2019, a year after Sarah died. Harold wrote a letter to his dead daughter. A year after she was gone, I looked at Emily. Have you asked him about this? She shook her head. I am scared to. What if there is something he is not telling me? Something about my mother? I thought about it. Thought about the man I had come to know. This gentle, broken, beautiful man, and I said, we need to talk to him. Together, so we did that night. We went to Harold's house. He was in his recliner, reading a book, looking more peaceful than I had ever seen him. Emily sat on the couch. I sat next to her, and I held out the envelope. Harold, Emily found this. We are not trying to invade your privacy, but we need to know. Harold looked at the envelope, and his face, it went pale. He set his book down, took the envelope, held it like it was made of glass, and he said, I wondered when someone would find this. Emily leaned forward. Grandpa, what is it? What is in the letter? Harold looked at her, and then he looked at me, and he said, the truth. He stood up, walked to the window, looked out at my lawn, the lawn we had watered together that morning, and he said, Sarah did not die in a car accident. The room went silent. I mean, completely silent, like the air had been sucked out. Emily whispered. What? Harold turned around, and his eyes, they were not the eyes of the gentle old man I knew. They were the eyes of someone carrying a secret so heavy. It had bent his soul. Sarah took her own life, Emily. She was struggling. With depression, with guilt, with everything, and one night, he could not finish. Emily was crying, I was crying. Harold was crying, and he said, I lied in the obituary. I told everyone it was an accident because I was ashamed. Because I thought, if people knew, they would judge her. Judge me, judge our family. I thought, if I said it was an accident, then it was not her fault. Then I was not a bad father. Then maybe I could live with myself. He walked back to his chair, sat down, opened the envelope, and he read the letter out loud. My dearest Sarah, I do not know if you can hear me. I do not know if there is anything after this life. But I need to believe there is. I need to believe you are somewhere. Safe, happy, free from the pain that took you from me. His voice cracked. I am sorry, my sweet girl. I am sorry I did not see how much you were hurting. I am sorry I was so wrapped up in my own grief after your mother died that I did not notice you were drowning too. I am sorry I was not the father you needed. I am sorry I did not ask the right questions. I am sorry I did not hold you tighter. I am sorry I let you go. He wiped his eyes. I found out about Emily, Sarah. I found out you had a daughter, a beautiful, perfect granddaughter I never knew existed. And I am angry at you for not telling me. But I am angrier at myself for not creating a world where you felt safe enough to tell me, for not being someone you could trust with your truth. Emily was sobbing now. Harold kept reading. I water the lawn every morning, Sarah. The lawn at the house next door. The house where I saved that family from the fire. I tell myself it is because I am being a good neighbor. But the truth is, I am watering it for you. Because the last thing you said to me, the last thing you ever said, was, Dad, I just want something to grow. He looked up from the letter, looked at Emily. And I did not understand then. I thought you were talking about a garden. About flowers, about grass. But you were talking about yourself, were not you, baby. You were talking about your own life, your own growth. And I failed you so completely. He folded the letter, put it back in the envelope. And he said, I wrote this letter the day I found out about Emily. A private investigator I hired. He found her adoption records. He told me she was living in Seattle, happy, healthy, with a good family, and I wanted to reach out. I wanted to tell her who I was. He looked at Emily. But I was scared. Scared she would hate me. Scared she would blame me for Sarah's death. Scared she would not want me. So I wrote this letter instead. And I put it in a drawer. And I told myself, someday I will be brave enough. Emily stood up, walked to Harold, knelt in front of him, and she said, "I do not blame you, Grandpa. I do not hate you. I just wanted to know you. To know where I came from, to know that I was not alone in the world." Harold pulled her into his arms, and he said, "You are not alone, Emily. Neither of us is alone, not anymore." I sat there, on that couch, watching this family find each other, and I thought about the moral of this story. Because every good story needs a moral. Every Reddit post that blows up, every bedtime story that sticks with you, they all have a lesson. And the lesson here, it is not about lawns. It is not about neighbors. It is not even about family. It is about the things we do to survive. Harold watered a lawn to survive his grief. I let him water my lawn to survive my loneliness. Emily searched for her grandfather to survive the feeling of not knowing where she came from. We all have our lawns, our rituals, our ways of keeping ourselves alive when life feels too heavy. And sometimes those rituals lead us to exactly where we need to be, to exactly who we need to be with. Harold still waters the lawn every morning, but now Emily waters it with us. 3 generations standing in a yard, watering grass, talking about life. And every morning, as the sun comes up and the water hits those green blades, I think about Sarah, about what she wanted for something to grow. And I look at Harold, at Emily, at myself, and I think, she got her wish. Something grew, something beautiful, something that will outlast all of us. And that is the end of my story, but not really, because stories like this, they do not really end. They just keep growing like grass, like love, like family. So if you are out there reading this or listening to this and you feel alone, find your lawn, find your ritual, find your reason to get up in the morning and water it every single day, because you never know. You never know who might show up on your porch. What truth might come to light? What family you might find? Just keep watering, keep growing, and trust that the roots go deeper than you can see. That is all I have got, folks. Thanks for listening, and Harold, if you are hearing this, I will see you at 6:30 tomorrow morning, hose in hand, ready to water whatever needs watering. Good night.